Hey, everyone. It's been a bit. I've been pretty busy with college work, stress, anxiety, and all the things. But I've been missing creating stuff like this, even if it isn't the most well-made, and I miss talking about the stuff that I love. So, with a new computer, minimal editing experience, and a dream, I decided to at least make a few more videos whenever I feel like it. Starting with this. I've always heard about Edgar Wright's Scott Pilgrim versus the World more times than I can possibly count, but for every time I've seen this clip reposted,
You know what? He just left.
I've never actually sat down and watched the thing, or even read the comics. But I'm taking a graphic novel class in my college and seeking more comics to read than just Marvel and DC, I decided to check out the original comic, all 6 volumes of Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim. And holy shit. That's right, this video isn't about the movie. I did end up watching it, but in my horribly insignificant opinion, it pales in comparison to the original. Scott Pilgrim is amazing. Not the character, of course, but that's the point. In the comics, Scott is an ass living a pretty empty life, leeching off those around him, doing whatever he can to avoid confrontation, which leads him to date a teenager because it's easy. But when Scott, through some trippy dream sequences, meets the literal girl of his dreams, he has to both confront his own shitty self along with his new girlfriend, Ramona Flowers' 7 evil exes. God, I love how creative this was. On the surface, it's a fun, incredibly stylish rom-com with a spunky video game-inspired style and a terrific sense of humor. And yeah, it is all these things, which the movie adapts pretty well. But what the film left behind was so much deeper than I ever expected. Scott is an asshole. Yeah. He's a selfish person who cheats, hates taking responsibility, and avoids confrontation at every step. Until he meets Ramona, someone who forces him to change if he ever hopes to stay with her. Through every tiny joke, through every panel of someone calling Scott the salt of the earth is a real person, a man-child, someone who doesn't like to grow up, someone that's just like us, a troubled guy who lost his way in life after a shit ton of heartbreak. He's relatable. He's a man who has to confront those shitty feelings if he hopes to win back the woman he loves. Ramona, Scott's girlfriend, is almost the same, although she doesn't want to admit it. Through each battle with an evil ex, Ramona is forced to remember the things she did, things that remind us of how shitty people can sometimes be. And she hates seeing that, to the point where she leaves Scott to be alone, what she thinks she deserves. She suffered through emotional abuse from Gideon that made her think she was terrible, that she could never change. I don't know about you, but that feeling of hating who you are, and thinking you deserve less, that's real. Many characters in the series are reminders to Ramona and Scott of their past. Gideon and the rest of the 7 evil exes are all reminders of Ramona of both her abuse and how she hurt those people. Envy Adams, Kim Pine, and Knives Chow are reminders to Scott that he's also a shitty person. They're 2 sides of the same coin, both real people suffering real problems. Through all the comedy, through all the colorful fights, that image sticks in your head like Scott's personification of his lack of self-respect.
Nigga Scott.
Nigga Scott.
Negative Scott. Ramona's ability to just disappear at the first sign of conflict thanks to the glow that Gideon inflicts on her and Scott, an ability that she uses to run away from her past. I'll be honest, I didn't expect a comedic comic to have this kind of grip on me, to make me cry. But when we see a scene of Scott telling Ramona that he loves her no matter what and she vanishes, I couldn't help but feel that. I feel that fear of losing love, of hurting someone close to me. And seeing that personified hurt me. Scott's an asshole, but most of us are too, and that's why I felt that so much. And that feeling would make anyone break down like Scott did, seal himself away to keep that pain out, to stop himself from feeling that shitty feeling. He wants to keep himself locked up, but the nightmares he has get worse, and it's harder and harder for him to find happiness. But he's shown that if he ever really wants to be happy, he has to fight that feeling and fight if he ever hopes to get the woman he loves back. Ramona has to fight that self-hate, to confront those same demons if she wants to be happy too. She has to go back to apologize to Scott, not for him, but to prove to herself that she can be different. She has to understand that running to stop herself from getting hurt causes more pain than staying. Through Knives as well, the high schooler Scott dated right before Ramona, we see this. She's too obsessed with Scott to realize that he wasn't good to her, because she doesn't want to lose that feeling of having loved, even though it wasn't a good relationship. Hell, it barely was one. But all of them would rather avoid those problems at first, until they realize that they're eating away at them. Love isn't easy, like the characters desperately want it to be. But if they want it to be with the people they love, they have to put in the work and fight for it. And at the end, when they beat Gideon, when they finally reunited, I cried. Again. And then again at the end. And a few other times when I reread the damn thing, because I just had to keep going back, to keep seeing those pages of Ramona leaving all the way to her and Scott stepping into the subspace highway to confront their inner demons together. To keep reading the reminders that if people can confront the part of themselves that they don't like, they can change. Edgar Wright's film is surprisingly faithful to the comic's jokes, but it forgot to be faithful to the major heart behind that story. It forgot that you can't finish a film about Scott without establishing what the story is really about. That people like him can change for the better. That no matter what people do, they can at least try to be better. The film can't just erase the true meaning of negative Scott, the sort of understanding, the heartbreaking panels and pages of Scott and Ramona's struggles, and replace them with some more jokes and electrifying fights. It's a good movie, a great comedy, but I'll forever say that the comic is better because it just has more heart and tackles change in a genuinely mature way. Scott Pilgrim is one of the funniest, most colorful, most heartbreaking, and most lovingly real comics I've ever read. And I didn't all expect to feel this way when I went into it. But every detail, every minor side character, every joke, and every single emotional beat, it's so much harder than they have any right to. I love Scott Pilgrim because it takes a character like Scott and proves that through love and a determination to fight for it, we can be better, and that we can try again.